Implicit bias training for DSA search committees. Understanding all staff in the Division of Student Affairs has completed the LinkedIn Learning Unconscious Bias. This training is secondary and simply provides some reminders and tips when going through the search process for a new hire. If you have not yet completed the unconscious bias training in the Learning Bridge, we strongly encourage you to complete it. Implicit bias, also known as unconscious bias, refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. These biases, which encompass both favorable and unfavorable assessments, are activated involuntarily and without an individual's awareness or intentional control because they reside deep in our subconscious. They cause us to have feelings and attitudes about other people based on characteristics such as race, ethnicity, age, and appearance. They are different from known biases that individuals may choose to conceal in order to be socially or politically correct. When biases are left unnoticed, they impact our ability to make sound and equitable hiring decisions. As the Division of Student Affairs seeks to ensure a diverse and inclusive work environment for our staff, we all must understand how our biases influence how we review and interview candidates. There are several ways bias may show up in the hiring process. Confirmation bias, also known as stereotyping bias. This happens when snap decisions are made about a candidate based on perceived truths. When this happens, the interviewer then spends time, subconsciously or not, trying to justify the bias. An example of this is looking at a Facebook profile for a candidate and using it as information concerning a candidate's suitability before the interview. Gut feeling bias. This happens when the interviewer uses shortcuts, like gut feelings, to conclude a candidate's ability to do the job without carefully examining all of the evidence first. This can be a particular trait or aspect of personality that you relate negatively or positively to the position. These specific traits or personalities don't correlate with the ability to carry out a task or the position's duties. Expectation anchor. We see this when the interviewer has anchored themselves to a particular piece of information about the candidate and uses it as a way to make decisions. Maybe the interviewer has stuck in their head characteristics of the role's predecessor because that person did the job well, in their opinion. This can lead to unrealistic expectations. Halo effect. Similar to expectation anchor, the halo effect occurs when an interviewer views the background information of a candidate as positive. Maybe it's where their degrees are from, or what sports they played, organizations they belong to, who their references are, etc. Similar to our last form of bias, these lead to unrealistic expectations and don't correlate with the ability to carry out a task or the position's duties. Horn effect. This is the opposite of the halo effect, where associates are deemed as negative. Similarity bias. This happens when the interview is wanting to find candidates that are like us or have similar characteristics, personality, or traits, but the need for this is not correlated with the position. This isn't inherently bad, but when taken too far, it becomes the focus in hiring candidates. Conformity bias. This is the fear of being thought poorly of by your peers or being ridiculed, feeling peer pressured to make a more aligned decision. If you find yourself being the only one who thinks a particular candidate did well or did not do well, how would you handle it? Would you say so, or would you allow yourself to go along with the group? Nonverbal bias occurs when an interviewer evaluates a candidate based on their body language, smile, handshake, or posture. These nonverbal actions don't correlate to skill sets or experiences, and an interviewer needs to recognize interviews are stressful, and the body language may reflect that. Culture will also impact certain behaviors. You're completing the first step now. You're participating in this training, which will automatically get you thinking about bias. Now, recognize that you have bias. We all do. While you can't help your first thought, you are responsible for every subsequent thought and action. Acknowledge that first thought so you're aware of it. At each meeting of the search committee, including interviews, start by brainstorming where bias may show up in the decisions that you have to make that day. This creates a space to hold ourselves and each other accountable to our biases. When reviewing candidate resumes, refrain from conducting searches of their social media accounts. Standardize interviews as much as possible. Ask candidates the same questions in the same order and have the same person ask the question each time. Consider likability. This is bias towards natural chemistry or common interests. It's natural to gravitate towards people with whom you instantly gel, but ask yourself, does it matter if you like the person that is hired? Reduce the influence of peers in hiring decisions by allowing committee members to submit feedback on candidates prior to discussing candidates. This helps ensure that what one committee member says doesn't influence your own thoughts. Committee members can look at collective, anonymously if so desired, feedback later. Speak up. One of your responsibilities on a search committee is to hold others accountable to biases. Provide constructive feedback, and if you're not comfortable doing so in the meeting, reach out to the chair of the search committee or hiring manager outside the meeting.